Imagine a life where every day you get just a little bit better, not by leaps and bounds, not by dramatic transformations overnight, but by tiny, consistent improvements, just 1% each day. At first, 1% may seem insignificant. You might think, how could such a small change possibly matter? But here's the secret: compounding is the quiet force that turns small steps into monumental change. Every habit, every skill, every mindset grows over time if nurtured consistently. When you focus on improving 1% every day, you are not chasing perfection, you are committing to progress. Progress builds momentum, and momentum creates a life that feels inevitable in its success. Consider the power of compounding in number Z. If you improve 1% every day for a year, you end up over 37 times better than when you started. Small actions accumulate, and the results are exponential. The challenge is that progress is often invisible in the short term. You might not notice the improvement week by week, but over months, the transformation is undeniable. This is why patience is not just a virtue, it is a strategy. Real change is a marathon, not a sprint. By focusing on small wins, you build confidence, resilience, and clarity. You start to see yourself not as someone waiting for a breakthrough, but as someone actively shaping their life. Improving 1% every day also changes the way you approach failure. You no longer fear mistakes because mistakes become data points, opportunities to adjust and refine. Every failure is a lesson that brings you closer to your goals. You develop a mindset where growth becomes inevitable because it is not dependent on a single heroic effort, but on the sum of many small intentional actions. Finally, improving 1% daily reshapes your relationships, your career, and your sense of purpose. Small acts of kindness, small gestures of leadership, small efforts in mastering your craft, they all accumulate. In time, you realize that the life you once thought required extraordinary luck or talent is actually built on consistency and intention. The power to change your life is not in grand gestures, but in the dedication to show up every day, even when no one is watching, and do a little better than yesterday. Your life transforms quietly, steadily, and profoundly. And that is how improving 1% every day doesn't just change your life, it redefines it. 5 keynotes of the speech: small, consistent actions compound, tiny improvements over time accumulate into monumental results. Progress over perfection, focus on incremental growth rather than waiting for a big breakthrough. Patience is a strategy, change takes time. Trust the process even when results are invisible. Failures become opportunities, mistakes are learning points that accelerate improvement. Daily intentionality shapes life. Consistent, small actions in every area of life lead to profound transformation. When we think about achieving greatness, our minds often jump to massive actions, big breakthroughs, and sudden dramatic results. We picture people waking up one day and completely transforming their lives. But the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Real change doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from small, consistent actions repeated over time. These tiny, almost imperceptible steps have the ability to compound, creating results that feel extraordinary, even though the actions themselves are ordinary. Think about a single drop of water. One drop doesn't make a ripple. One drop doesn't carve a river. Yet, over time, countless drops erode stone, create streams, and shape landscapes. The principle is the same for our personal growth. A single hour spent learning, a single page read, a single moment of reflection. It may seem insignificant in the moment, but these small actions, repeated day after day, compound into enormous results. The key is consistency. Without repetition, a single effort is just a momentary spark. With consistency, that spark becomes a fire that warms your entire life. Many people get discouraged because they focus only on immediate results. They try something new for a week or a month, don't see dramatic improvement, and assume it doesn't work. But compounding is rarely visible in the short term. It is a quiet force operating silently behind the scenes. Just like a tiny snowball rolling down a hill eventually grows into a massive avalanche, small, deliberate actions grow exponentially over time. Each effort builds on the last, creating a chain reaction that eventually produces results far greater than we ever imagined. This principle applies to every area of life. In fitness, a single push-up doesn't build strength, but one push-up every day, gradually increasing, transforms your body over months and years. In learning, 1 minute of practice or 1 page of study doesn't make you an expert, but consistent daily effort compounds knowledge and skill until mastery feels inevitable. In relationships, a small act of kindness, a word of encouragement, or a simple gesture of support may seem trivial, but repeated consistently, it builds trust, deepens connection, and transforms the bonds you have with the people around you. What makes this principle so remarkable is that it works regardless of how much progress we see immediately. The magic of compounding lies in its invisible growth. Progress is not linear. At first, it may feel like you are moving in circles, taking tiny steps with no visible outcome. But every small step is creating a foundation for what comes next. Every habit you form, every skill you practice, every effort you make is an investment. And just like any investment, it grows with time, often beyond what you ever thought possible. The secret to leveraging small, consistent actions is not in luck or extraordinary talent. It is in discipline and intentionality. It requires choosing to show up day after day, even when results are not immediately visible. It requires valuing progress over perfection, knowing that small, deliberate choices made consistently are far more powerful than occasional bursts of extreme effort. The compounding effect rewards patience, persistence, and commitment, and it punishes neglect and inconsistency. The beauty of this principle is also in its accessibility. You do not need a special talent, a unique opportunity, or the perfect circumstances to begin. Anyone, anywhere, can take a small, deliberate action each day. Improvement is not about dramatic change, it is about dedication. Each time you make the conscious choice to do something just a little better than yesterday, you are creating momentum. And momentum is what turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. Ultimately, embracing small, consistent actions shifts your mindset. You stop waiting for perfect conditions or sudden breakthroughs. You stop underestimating the power of the ordinary. You begin to see life as a series of small choices, each one a building block in creating something far greater than yourself. And when those small, deliberate actions compound over weeks, months, and years, you realize that the life you always dreamed of wasn't about luck or instant success. It was about showing up consistently and allowing the power of compounding to work quietly, invisibly, and powerfully in your favor. One of the biggest obstacles to personal growth and achievement is the idea that we must be perfect before we start, or that progress is only meaningful if it is flawless. This belief often keeps people stuck, waiting for the right time, the perfect plan, or the ideal circumstances. But the truth is, perfection is not only unnecessary, it is impossible. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of challenges. Waiting for perfection only delays growth, while focusing on progress creates momentum. Progress over perfection is the mindset that allows people to take action, learn from experience, and move forward even when everything is not yet ideal. When we focus on perfection, we tie our self-worth to outcomes, and we set ourselves up for frustration. We become trapped in a cycle of overthinking and hesitation, constantly comparing ourselves to an ideal that does not exist. But progress over perfection shifts the focus from outcomes to effort, from results to growth, from judging ourselves to learning from ourselves. Each small step forward, no matter how imperfect, becomes a victory in itself. This mindset removes the fear of failure because you realize that mistakes are not indicators of inadequacy. They are evidence that you are trying, learning, and moving forward. Progress over perfection also changes the way we approach goals. When we obsess over the perfect plan or the perfect execution, we often avoid taking any action at all. We wait until we feel ready, until conditions are perfect, until we have every resource or skill in place. But perfection is a moving target, and it never truly arrives. Growth, on the other hand, happens in motion. Every time you take a step, even an imperfect one, you gain experience, insight, and momentum. You learn what works, what doesn't, and how to adjust. Over time, those small adjustments accumulate into real, meaningful results that perfection could never have achieved on its own. This principle is evident in every aspect of life. In learning, waiting to fully understand a subject before attempting to apply it slows progress. Trying, making mistakes, and refining your approach creates a cycle of improvement that accelerates mastery. In work, waiting for the perfect strategy or the perfect product launch prevents innovation. Taking imperfect action allows you to test, iterate, and improve, leading to outcomes far better than waiting for perfection could ever produce. Even in personal relationships, focusing on being the perfect friend, partner, or family member can create distance and anxiety. But making consistent, imperfect efforts, listening, showing up, expressing care builds trust and strengthens bonds far more effectively. Progress over perfection also fosters resilience. When you accept that mistakes, setbacks, and imperfections are part of the journey, you stop fearing failure. You become willing to experiment, to take risks, and to embrace challenges. You learn to adapt, to adjust, and to grow in real time. Perfectionists often give up at the first sign of difficulty because it doesn't match their ideal. But those who focus on progress understand that every obstacle is an opportunity to learn and improve. This mindset allows them to persist longer, work harder, and achieve more than anyone who waits for perfection to arrive. Another important aspect is self-compassion. Progress over perfection encourages you to celebrate effort, not just results. It allows you to acknowledge small wins, to appreciate the steps you are taking, and to recognize growth even when the outcome is not flawless. This creates a positive feedback loop. Effort is recognized, motivation increases, and the desire to continue grows stronger. Over time, the consistent pursuit of progress transforms habits, skills, and character, producing results far beyond what a single act of perfection could achieve. Ultimately, progress over perfection changes the way you live your life. It frees you from the paralyzing pressure of doing everything flawlessly. It allows you to start before you are ready, to learn as you go, and to improve incrementally every day. By focusing on progress rather than perfection, you take control of your growth, embrace imperfection as part of the journey, and create a life defined by consistent improvement, momentum, and meaningful achievements. The shift from perfection to progress is not just a strategy for success. It is a mindset that transforms the way you approach every challenge, every opportunity, and every day of your life. One of the most overlooked yet powerful principles for achieving meaningful success is patience. We live in a world that glorifies instant results, rapid growth, and overnight transformations. Everywhere we look, we are bombarded with stories of sudden breakthroughs and spectacular achievements. It's easy to believe that success should come quickly, and when it doesn't, frustration and self-doubt creep in. But patience is not just a passive state of waiting. It is an active, deliberate strategy that underpins every lasting achievement. Understanding and practicing patience is what allows small, consistent actions to compound, progress to accumulate, and transformation to become real. Patience requires a shift in mindset. It means understanding that meaningful growth rarely happens in a straight line or on a fixed timeline. When you plant a seed, You do not expect a tree to appear overnight. You water it, nurture it, and allow time for roots to take hold and branches to grow. Personal growth works in the same way. Every habit you form, every skill you practice, every effort you make requires time to show results. Patience allows you to trust the process, knowing that consistent effort today, even when invisible, is laying the foundation for extraordinary outcomes in the future. Without patience, we are prone to impulsive decisions. We jump from one strategy to another, trying to force progress or seeking quick fixes, only to end up scattered and frustrated. Impatience undermines momentum because it prioritizes short-term gratification over long-term results. But when patience becomes a strategy, it transforms the way we approach challenges and setbacks. We learn to view obstacles not as failures, but as essential parts of the growth process. We understand that real mastery requires repetition, experience, and time. By embracing patience, we allow our efforts to mature and compound, producing results that far exceed what any rushed or forced action could achieve. Patience also enhances resilience. Life is unpredictable. The path to success is rarely smooth. There will be delays, disappointments, and moments when progress seems invisible. Those who practice patience are able to endure these periods without losing focus or giving up. They understand that setbacks are temporary and that persistence, coupled with patience, is what separates those who succeed from those who quit too soon. Each step forward, even if small, is a victory. Each challenge overcome builds confidence and strength, reinforcing the value of patience as a strategic approach to growth. In addition, patience teaches us to appreciate incremental progress. In a society obsessed with dramatic results, small wins can feel insignificant. But when we recognize that change accumulates over time, we begin to value every positive step. This perspective encourages us to celebrate effort, acknowledge growth, and stay committed to our journey even when the finish line seems far away. Over weeks, months, and years, these small, consistent improvements transform habits, abilities, and character, ultimately shaping a life defined by meaningful achievements rather than fleeting success. Patience also nurtures learning and adaptability. Rushed actions often lead to mistakes, misjudgments, and wasted effort. When we adopt patience as a strategy, we allow ourselves the time to reflect, observe, and adjust. We can analyze what works, refine our approach, and make informed decisions. This deliberate pacing ensures that our actions are not just frequent but effective. In this way, patience is not about slowing down or being passive. It is about creating space for thoughtful growth, intelligent decision-making, and sustainable progress. Finally, patience cultivates perspective, reminds us that success is a journey, not a destination. It encourages us to focus on the process rather than obsessing over immediate outcomes. When we embrace patience, we begin to see the value of long-term effort, consistency, and the quiet accumulation of progress. We understand that true transformation is rarely dramatic, but when it occurs, it is profound. The strategy of patience ensures that our efforts are not wasted, that our growth is sustainable, and that we are prepared to handle the responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities that come with real achievement. By adopting patience as a strategy, we align ourselves with the natural rhythm of growth, understanding that lasting results are built gradually, deliberately, and consistently. It becomes the foundation upon which all other principles of improvement, consistency, progress over perfection, learning from failure, are able to function effectively. Patience is not waiting idly. It is the conscious, disciplined choice to trust the process, endure setbacks, and stay committed to incremental growth, knowing that time is the ally of anyone willing to work, persist, and believe in the power of gradual, compounding effort. Failure is often seen as something to avoid at all costs, a signal that we are not good enough or that our efforts are wasted. Society teaches us to celebrate success and hide mistakes, making failure feel like a mark of shame. But in reality, failure is not the enemy of growth. It is one of the most powerful catalysts for learning, improvement, and eventual success. Every failure, when approached with the right mindset, contains invaluable lessons and hidden opportunities that can shape the trajectory of our lives. The way we respond to setbacks determines whether they become stumbling blocks or stepping stones. When we embrace failure as a natural part of growth, we shift from fear to curiosity. Instead of asking, why am I failing? We ask, what can I learn from this? Each mistake becomes a source of insight, revealing weaknesses to address, strategies to adjust, and knowledge to carry forward. Failure is the feedback mechanism of life. It shows us what does not work and points the way toward what does. The sooner we accept this, the faster we grow, because every attempt, whether successful or not, provides critical information that no amount of theory, planning, or observation can replace. Failures also teach resilience and mental strength. Success without failure rarely tests our limits, pushes our boundaries, or teaches us how to endure challenges. When we fail, we confront discomfort, disappointment, and sometimes even fear. Choosing to move forward despite these feelings strengthens character, builds perseverance, and cultivates confidence. Each time we recover from a setback, we prove to ourselves that we are capable, that mistakes do not define us, and that our potential is greater than any single failure. Over time, this mindset transforms challenges from obstacles into opportunities for growth. Moreover, failure encourages creativity and innovation. When our first attempts do not succeed, we are forced to think differently, experiment with new approaches, and adapt. Some of the most significant discoveries in history, whether in science, business, or the arts, came after repeated failures. The act of failing creates conditions for reflection, analysis, and creativity. Without failure, we might continue doing things the same way, never realizing that a small adjustment or a new perspective could unlock extraordinary results. Another critical aspect is humility. Failure reminds us that no matter how skilled, talented, or knowledgeable we are, there is always room to learn. It keeps us grounded, open to feedback, and aware that growth is a continuous process. When we treat failures as opportunities, we cultivate a mindset that values progress over ego, learning over comfort, and curiosity over judgment. This mindset becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The more we learn from mistakes, the more capable we become and the more willing we are to embrace future challenges. Failure also teaches patience and long-term thinking. When a plan does not succeed immediately, it is easy to feel frustrated or discouraged. But if we recognize that failure is part of the natural process, we begin to see setbacks as temporary and necessary. We learn to pace ourselves, to persevere, and to understand that every misstep is bringing us closer to a better strategy, a smarter approach, or a more refined skill. This perspective prevents impulsive decisions and encourages thoughtful, deliberate actions that accumulate over time. Finally, failure fosters courage. The willingness to try, risk, and step into uncertainty is what separates those who achieve meaningful results from those who remain stagnant. Each failure we encounter and overcome reduces fear, making it easier to take risks in the future. By embracing failure as an opportunity rather than a defeat, we train ourselves to act boldly, learn rapidly, and persist relentlessly. Success is rarely a straight path, but those who understand the value of failure navigate its twists and turns with confidence, insight, and resilience. When we reframe failures as opportunities, life itself becomes a learning laboratory. Every setback carries within it the potential for improvement. Every mistake contains guidance for a better approach, and every disappointment holds the seed of future success. The key is not to avoid failure, but to recognize it as a critical part of the journey, to extract lessons from each experience and to apply them consistently. In this way, failure stops being something to fear and becomes the foundation of growth, the driver of innovation, and the stepping stone to achievement. One of the most powerful truths about personal growth and achievement is that the life we live is the result of the choices we make every single day. It is not shaped by occasional bursts of effort or random acts of luck, but by the consistent, intentional actions we take day after day. Daily intentionality is the practice of making conscious decisions that align with your goals, values, and vision for your life. When we commit to this mindset, every small action becomes meaningful, and over time, the accumulation of these deliberate choices shapes the life we want to live. Intentionality begins with awareness. Most people move through their days on autopilot, reacting to external circumstances rather than actively shaping them. They follow routines that may feel comfortable or familiar, but which do not necessarily contribute to growth. Choosing to live intentionally requires pausing, reflecting, and asking, does this action move me closer to the life I want? It requires evaluating habits, routines, and decisions, and making adjustments that prioritize progress, growth, and purpose. Each deliberate choice, no matter how small, becomes an investment in your future self. Small intentional actions compound in ways that are often invisible at first. Drinking an extra glass of water, reading 10 pages of a book, practicing a skill for 15 minutes, or spending meaningful time with someone you care about may seem insignificant in isolation. Yet repeated consistently, these actions create momentum, shape habits, and influence outcomes far beyond what we initially perceive. Life is built on accumulation, the sum of small, thoughtful decisions made consistently over time. By being intentional each day, you are effectively designing your life rather than leaving it to chance. Daily intentionality also impacts mindset. When you commit to purposeful action, you cultivate focus, clarity, and confidence. You stop drifting aimlessly or reacting to circumstances outside your control. Instead, you act with purpose, understanding that your choices are powerful and that consistent effort, no matter how small, leads to meaningful results. This mindset helps you overcome procrastination, self-doubt, and distraction because you recognize that every day is an opportunity to move forward and that small steps taken consistently are more valuable than occasional bursts of effort. Intentional living shapes not only personal growth, but also relationships and influence. The way we communicate, the time we dedicate to others, the support we offer, and the consistency with which we show up all create impact. Small acts of kindness, encouragement, and leadership may seem minor, but they accumulate to build trust, respect, and deeper connections. Over time, intentional actions in relationships can transform the way people perceive you, the quality of your interactions, and the depth of the bonds you share. Life is ultimately a reflection of how we treat ourselves and others, and daily intentionality ensures that reflection aligns with the person we want to become. Another aspect of intentionality is prioritization. Life offers countless choices, distractions, and demands, and without intentionality, it is easy to be pulled in multiple directions. Daily intentionality requires consciously deciding where to invest time, energy, and attention. By focusing on actions that align with your long-term goals, you avoid wasting effort on what does not matter. This prioritization is not about rigid control, but about making deliberate choices that produce meaningful progress, ensuring that your energy is spent building the life you desire rather than reacting to every passing impulse or demand. Intentionality also strengthens resilience. When life presents challenges, setbacks, or unexpected changes, those who live intentionally are better equipped to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. They have clarity about their goals and values, and they can make decisions that keep them moving forward even in difficult circumstances. Each intentional action, no matter how small, reinforces habits, builds confidence, and develops a mindset that can adapt and thrive in the face of adversity. Ultimately, daily intentionality is the bridge between dreams and reality. The visions we hold for our lives are only realized through consistent, deliberate action. By making conscious choices each day, aligning behavior with values, and committing to small, purposeful steps, we shape our character, influence our environment, and accumulate progress that transforms our life over time. The life you desire is not a distant event or a product of luck. It is the outcome of the decisions you make every day intentionally with awareness and with a commitment to align actions with purpose. When we step back and look at the journey of personal growth, it becomes clear that transformation is rarely sudden or dramatic. It is the product of small, consistent actions that compound over time. It is the commitment to progress rather than perfection, trusting that each step forward, no matter how imperfect, moves us closer to our goals. It is the patience to stay the course, even when results are invisible, knowing that real growth requires time and persistence. It is the ability to embrace failure, seeing every setback as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve. And it is the daily intentionality to choose actions that align with our values, our vision, and the life we want to create. When these principles come together, they create a powerful framework for growth. Each small step builds on the last. Each lesson learned from failure strengthens resilience. Each intentional choice shapes not only our habits, but our character, our relationships, and ultimately the trajectory of our lives. Over time, the compounding effect of these actions transforms what once seemed impossible into reality. The life you dream of is not something that will happen by chance. It is something that is built quietly, steadily, and intentionally, one small action at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time. By committing to improving just a little every day, focusing on progress over perfection, exercising patience, learning from setbacks, and living with purpose, you create momentum that carries you toward extraordinary results. The remarkable truth is that change does not require grand gestures. It does not require a sudden breakthrough or extraordinary luck. What it requires is consistency, intentionality, and belief in the process. If you commit to these principles, the life you want is not just a possibility, it becomes inevitable. And that is the power of improving 1% every day. It is not just a habit, a strategy, or a mindset. It is the pathway to a life transformed, a life defined by growth, resilience, and purpose.